Hey, doing guys? For this week's video, we're going to be talking about the Roku enhanced remote or voice remote. And before we get to that, you want to listen to this because this is actually a pretty cool remote for what it can do. I wanted to give you an update on my Roku TV, in this case the TLC 40-inch, I believe. Especially if you use the pause feature. And to be able to use the pause feature on Roku TV, you have to use a USB flash disk, and I recommend using the 16 gigabyte because anything higher than that, it simply won't use. I find there's two big problems with using the pause feature. For one thing, it writes, once you put that USB flash disk in there, it writes it in a proprietary format. Unfortunately, that you can't, once you do that, you can't use it in a regular computer again. It's basically unusable. You put it in the computer and it won't even recognize it. And when you try to format it in a format that can be read by the computer, you can't even do that. No matter what you write it to it, Mac OS Extended, it could be FAT32, it doesn't work. Doesn't initialize. So basically, it'll render that USB disk useless for anything else. The second problem I have with it is I think over time it stops working. It's supposed to be able to pause for 90 minutes. So when I've been having problems with the one I have right now. So I think what happens is for instance, like I pause it now, and it'll pause for maybe 30 to 60 seconds. After that, it'll stop pausing, and it's supposed to be able to do it up to 90 minutes. I think what happens over time, having that USB disk plugged in, I see a couple of problems. For one thing, being plugged in, you're actually initializing it 24 hours a day. So supplying electricity to the USB disk, I think it wears it out. So perhaps, I don't know if it's a proprietary format. I'm not sure what it is. So I guess they do tend to wear out. So I knew I was going to have to go out and get a new USB flash disk. And once I plugged it in and formatted it, I recognized it was unformatted. So once I did that, it worked perfectly fine. So I'm not sure what the issue is. Could be a software bug or some other things. So if you do use that feature, keep those things in mind. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Roku Enhanced Remote or the voice remote. And this is really a cool little remote for several reasons. Now, the one that comes with the Roku TV, they tend to give you just a basic remote that uses infrared or line of sight. So anything blocking it, you're not going to be able to change the channel. And so, which is okay for most remotes if you just use it for some basic things like that. Now, if you live in a family and the remote tends to disappear or wear out prematurely or get destroyed, so I think I went online the first time and I found it wasn't made by Roku themselves. I think it was some kind of China third-party manufacturer. Not the greatest of quality. It was only about $10. I didn't realize that you can buy a secondary remote. Now this one's more expensive. This is about $20, but it's well worth it because when I hooked it up, and I found I could point this remote in any direction, and it would change the channel and other things. And occasionally, I do find some remotes the IR would be so powerful it would just simply bounce on the wall and then into the TV. Now, on a whim, what I did is I covered up the IR sensor with my hand, and it would still change channels. And so this remote is not just IR. This is actually Wi-Fi enabled, which means you could point it in any direction. I even tested it all the way across the room into the living room, and pointing in the bedroom, it would change channels. So I don't know if it's RF, Wi-Fi, or radio frequency. That's what it is. So, or it uses, I'm not sure exactly. I'm guessing it's probably Wi-Fi. So that makes it even better, because you don't have to worry about pointing exactly into the TV. You could just be, pointing it away or whatever, and it would still work. I love those kind of remotes. Even with the Apple TV remote, is the same thing. It's Wi-Fi enabled. You don't have to point it directly at the TV. You don't have to worry about interference. If there's something blocking the signal, it simply works. And of course, one of the biggest features of the enhanced remote is it is voice enabled. And we're going to take a look at that right now. Okay, as promised, we're going to take a close look at the Roku enhanced remote with voice command. Now, it looks pretty virtually the same of any Roku remote. Now, most of the basic remotes that you get with the Roku TVs is just using an infrared sensor, IR sensor, which is a line of sight. Now, this is Wi-Fi enabled, so you don't necessarily need line of sight. And like I said, it looks virtually the same with a few exceptions. And one of these being the microphone button right here. By pressing that, you can do searches, open up streaming channels, and even some basic commands such as the time. Weather didn't seem to work, but it seems a feature that's going to be coming soon, so you may could actually use it for other things. Now, the microphone, I think, is located right below the power button. There's a hole right here to allow sound to reach the remote. Now, also interesting to note is the reason it has to be Wi-Fi enabled is infrared cannot support voice commands through IR, so that's why it's Wi-Fi enabled, to be able to send your voice commands to the television so it can interpret it and then follow your commands. So also with this type of remote, you have to pair it with the television as well. And once you open the battery cover, there is a button right here that you can push and sync up with your television, and there's a LED on the other side that will blink showing it is pairing, and it is sending out a signal to the TV so you can pair it together. Now, to use the Roku enhanced remote, you have to go into the Roku TV settings and set it up and activate for the enhanced remote. Now, here it says you have to go to the advanced system settings, which we're going to do right now just to show you. And there we go. Now, once we had it activated and we put the batteries in remote, it automatically detected it and started to sync up with the television. Movies. Stargate. Bionic Woman.